When we talk about Punnett squares, there's a couple variations that are important to know. First of all, multiple alleles. The most common example of multiple alleles has to do with blood types. There are 4 different known blood types. You have type A, type B, type AB, and type O. They're coded for by 3 different alleles. You can have this allele, which would code for type A. You could have this allele, which codes for type B, or you could have the recessive allele. Allele A and allele B are codominant, but both are dominant to this, which is recessive. So you can have several different genotypes. For type A, you could have 2 of the A alleles, or you could have a dominant and a recessive. For type B, you have the same situation. You could have 2 B alleles, or you could have a dominant and recessive. For type AB, you have a codominant situation. So you have an A allele and a B allele. For type O, you get 2 recessive alleles. So these are all the genotypes, and these would be all of the possible phenotypes. So let's try this. I want to cross an individual that is heterozygous for type A blood. So this would be heterozygous, 2 different alleles for type A, with an individual who is heterozygous for type B blood. When we set up our Punnett square, I'm going to list my alleles. I have the A allele and the recessive allele, and I have the B allele and the recessive allele. Now we're going to complete our Punnett square. I have an A and a B, so I'm going to write them in alphabetical order. I have a B and a recessive, and remember, your dominant always comes before your recessive in your notation. I have a dominant and recessive, and I have 2 recessive. So when we go to look at our phenotypes, this individual would have type AB blood. This individual would have type B blood. This individual would have type A blood. And this individual would have type O blood. And that's when we do multiple alleles. Another different type of Punnett square that you can work with is sex-linked characteristics, and those are a little different. With sex-linked characteristics, you're looking at both of the X and the Y chromosome. Remember that females have the genotype XX. Males have the genotype XY. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at why we get sex-linked characteristics. The reason is the X chromosome is much bigger than the Y chromosome. So when we look at genes, and here are all of our genes on our chromosome, anything that's here and up, the Y chromosome won't have, and anything that's here and down, the Y chromosome also won't have. Meaning, males only get 1 copy of some of these chromosomes. So let's take a look at an example. We're going to look at hemophilia. And hemophilia is a blood clotting disorder. Individuals that have hemophilia have trouble clotting their blood, which would stop the flow of bleeding. So simple cuts and injuries could prove to be critical, even fatal to these individuals. You can have 3 different alleles for hemophilia. This allele is the normal clotting factor. It's dominant to this allele, which is the hemophilia allele. You can also have a Y chromosome. And like we said before, because this is a sex-linked disorder, the males are only going to get one copy because this Y chromosome doesn't have a copy of the hemophilia allele on it. So let's look at all of the different genotypes we could have. There are 3 different genotypes a female could have. She could be homozygous dominant, and this would be a normal clotting female. You could have a heterozygous female, and she would be normal in the way her blood clots, but she would be what's called a carrier. A carrier carries the allele for the disorder. She could also be homozygous recessive, and in this case, she would have hemophilia. For males, there's only 2 genotypes. They could get the dominant allele, and he would be normal. His blood would clot in the normal fashion. Or he could have hemophilia. So let's look at what's going to happen. We'll take a female that is a carrier. Remember, she has a heterozygous, so she has a dominant and a recessive copy. And we'll take a male who does not have hemophilia. And we're going to cross these. So for our first one, we're going to get an individual, a little girl, who's normal. She doesn't carry the disease. She doesn't have hemophilia at all. We're going to get another little girl who's a carrier. Okay. We could also get a little boy that does not have the disease, or we could get a little boy that does have the disease. This is how sex-linked characteristics work. In this case, we have 3 different phenotypes: girls without hemophilia, a boy without hemophilia, and a boy with hemophilia, but 4 different genotypes.